The Nintendo 64 was my chosen console back in the late 1990s. I was able to play such games as Turok the Dinosaur Hunter and Rogue Squadron. But for many, the PlayStation 1 was their console of choice, and they got to play such games as Crash Bandicoot and Final Fantasy VII. Now, I missed out on a great many PlayStation 1 gems, although I use the term missed out rather loosely because if I had had the PlayStation 1, I would have missed out on the superior Turok 2. But anyway, Nintendo 64 fanboyism aside, one series that I missed was the Tomb Raider series. Now, I was of course aware of the series at the time, but I had no real desire to play it. I had played a demo on the PC once and found it to be of, well, shall we say, boring quality. And then of course there was that lovely Angelina Jolie movie that made adolescent Generallotz a bit happy in pants, as it were. But yes, Tomb Raider was a series I never really cared all that much about. Until recent years when Mizio and I attempted to play Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness, a game that I found to be of decent quality, even if it wasn't really my thing. But what all this gets into is the fact that somewhat recently I played Tomb Raider 2013 and was, to say the least, blown away. Now, before we get into the game itself, let's first take a look at Tomb Raider's history. The Tomb Raider series began in 1996 with the game of the same name. It was one of the then-new 3D puzzle platformers. In this game, you controlled Lara Croft as she went on an adventure to collect various artifacts. To say that this game was revolutionary was an understatement, and it pretty much serves as the so-called example for the entire 3D puzzle platforming genre. The graphics themselves were, well, excellent for the time. Everything looked quite realistic, although they have aged pretty badly. Lara herself was a smooth-operating female adventurer with a Ripley-style female characterization. She was also notable for being a female character at a time when they were still rather few and far between. The game would go on to sell 7.5 million copies and spawn a great many sequels, each of varying quality. Some good, some bad, some so bad that they almost killed the franchise. Eventually, there'd be one shitty sequel too many, and the franchise was in dire need of a reboot, which came in 2013, and it was going to be a bit different from the earlier Tomb Raiders. It was going to be one where we actually got to see Lara Croft become the legendary Raider of Tombs. So now, let's get into the game and see just why this was the reboot we needed. We are, of course, taking a look at the PC version, and damn is it good. For one, you can actually use either the keyboard and mouse or a controller, and the game doesn't go haywire when you have a controller plugged in like so many other bloody PC ports. In fact, you could switch between the two at will. Already we can see that this elusive E-fort, or could it be effort, I forget, it's been so bloody long since the game actually had any put into it, is alive and well in this game. And as we go through the various aspects of the game, you will see that this E-fort abounds just about everywhere. First and foremost, I must say the graphics are bloody amazing. Sure, graphics don't make the game, but they help. This game looks like a film at times with how good the graphics look, and this is not even at all high. Everything has a high polygon count, and the character models almost look like real people. Lara herself looks absolutely amazing, and her character model has all sorts of little details to be found. And one of the innumerable DLCs allows her to don an Indiana Jones-styled outfit. Sure, it would be cool if you could, unlock it through normal play, but oh well, no matter how good this game may be, it's still a modern game, and most content is hidden behind a goddamn paywall. And that's why you wait and get the Game of the Year edition when it's on sale for $10. Idiotic practices of modern gaming aside, Lara has been redesigned a bit. Her boobs are no longer gargantuan cantaloupes, and now are something a bit more sensible, and her overall design is now a considerable more realistic. Essentially, she looks tough, but fair. Lastly, there is also an option to turn on special hair physics, although you need a computer on the level of the bloody HAL 9000 to run them though. Special hair physics. What a time to be alive. The world has been exquisitely well crafted all throughout with extreme attention to detail. There are so many things going on at any one time that it's absolutely amazing, and usually you can traverse a considerable amount of each level to enjoy said amount of detail. To sum up, the game is as breathtaking as a AAA title should be, and it really shows what developers can do when they use them dollars wisely. Gameplay is the standard third-person over-the-shoulder style, and the camera is excellent, and I've never been killed because it was focusing on a goddamn rock instead of the enemy. And you can even toggle which shoulder it settles over. The controls are fast and responsive, even on a keyboard, although I personally prefer to play games such as this with a controller as it feels more natural. The controls are also well laid out, and well thought out, and I never feel as if I'm scrambling for a button just before I die. One really hilarious thing, though, is how Lara rolls. When you hit the roll button, she does this awkward and bizarre scrabbling motion that just looks hilarious. If you're feeling a particularly bit mischievous, you might consider just tapping the button and watching Lara make a bit of a fool out of herself.
Sweet Clyde, laugh derisively at him.
When one is done being a bit of a dick, hitting the button again causes her to be a bit more reasonable and do a standard roll. Gunplay for the game is standard chest-high McWallington, as the great Mr. Croshaw would say, and it works quite well indeed, and you don't really stick to the wall like you slathered your back in superglue, so it's not all that difficult to move from cover to cover. The main draw of Tomb Raider has always been the acrobatics, jumping from place to place and shifting up various objects. This is handled very well, and the controls never feel sloppy, and if you mess up, it's more your own fault instead of the game's. The checkpoint system in the game is thankfully not that annoying. Sure, you can't quick save, but generally you don't have to repeat huge sections of the game if you fuck up, which makes playing the game that much more enjoyable. In the game, you have access to a great many weapons, ranging from the humble bow to the deadly AK-47. Each weapon is actually pretty bloody good, and graphically the weapons all look great, with numerous details here and there. But really, you'll most likely be sticking to the bow most of the game, as it is the most useful. It's silent, and if you hit the enemy in the head, it is a one-hit kill. And in the course of the game, you can get several different types of arrows, each with differing functions. You also have a melee weapon in the guise of a climbing axe, and Lara can pull off some pretty brutal executions that are just oh so satisfying. Like with many modern games, Tomb Raider has an upgrade system, and there are two things you can upgrade, Lara herself and her weapons. You do this at a Dark Souls-style campsite. Lara herself has a few upgrade paths, and the weapons themselves can be upgraded with salvage that you can find throughout a level, although the logic behind some of these upgrades is a bit iffy. I would like to ask, how the hell can a Japanese submachine gun become an AK-47, seeing as how said submachine gun doesn't use a round anywhere near like an AK-47 round? Well, actually, now that I think of it, I do have an answer.
Think to yourself, it's just a show. I should really just relax.
Last, but certainly not least, we have Detective Vision. Hunter's Vision. We've never heard of the Batman Arkham games ever. I mean, those are just a myth. Yeah, like many games these days, we have the Detective Vision that allows you to find where you need to go, or what you need to do to progress. Now, I've never called myself a pro-MLG kind of gamer. I'm just a gamer who likes to have fun. I'm not going to be at the top of the leaderboards in COD, and I'm certainly not going to get silver rank on StarCraft 2. I just like to have fun. And so, I personally like this Detective Vision concept simply because it stops the game from just stopping. Of you hitting a wall and going, where the hell am I supposed to go, and what the hell am I supposed to do? Now, I get that this is supposed to be a concept of a challenge, but it really isn't. Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2, and Demon Souls don't have to resort to that. The game actually is intelligently designed enough that you usually always can figure out where you're supposed to go. And that is key. You should always be able to figure out where you're supposed to go fairly quickly, even if it is somewhat of a challenge. It should be difficult, but not obtuse. Unlike with many modern AAA titles, the game is not strictly linear. The levels are wide and expansive with a great many things to do within them. You can explore to find salvage for upgrades, and you can explore to find various artifacts, and you can even examine them closely, and Lara will give you a bit of dialogue. Now, there is not all that much tomb raiding in the game called Tomb Raider, as the actual tombs are more side tasks than anything else, and as one would expect, many of the tombs are premium content. So what is the game then? Modern gaming aside, yet again, the tombs are usually decent enough, and the puzzles are suitably difficult to solve that they give you a bit of satisfaction when you actually complete them. Probably the coolest aspect of Tomb Raider is the reintegration of backtracking. Oh sure, we complained about it at times, but when you're forced to go down linear hallways for several goddamn years, it's awesome to finally be able to go back and do things! Like with the Metroid series, in different parts of the game, you will not be able to reach certain areas with your current equipment loadout. And thus, it's very satisfying when you can return to a previous part of the game and reach an area you couldn't before. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we call in the business a game, or game, I think is actually how it's pronounced. It's been so long since I played one that I'm just not really sure anymore. And so now, let's dive right in to the story. The story of the game is quite simply excellent. The atmosphere is engrossing, and the setting is thought-provoking, and the game actually is not completely bloody predictable. What a concept, I know! The characters are also well written and actually sometimes feel like legitimate human beings, instead of just standard bits of stock robots. Even the villain is actually a bit more nuanced than usual, and actually has some pretty good backstory given him in the guise of text logs. The story begins with Lara and company heading to an island in search of a lost Japanese civilization. On the way, a storm completely wrecks their boat, and Lara gets kidnapped by crazy cultists. And she must fight through them to escape from the island with her friends and hopefully with proof of the civilization they came to find. Throughout the game, Lara learns how to fight and survive, and you as the player grow right along with her. The character for Lara is like her pixelated predecessor, a Ripley-type female character that does not start out as an uber badass. Rather, she starts out not knowing how to fight or kill, and she must attend the alma mater all great heroes and heroines must attend, the School of Hard Knocks, and good God does she throw herself into her studies. She gets her ass kicked a lot, and thus it is of much satisfaction to see her kick ass in return. Now you guys who are longtime fans, you know I hate indulging in politics. But you know what? Modern gaming is inundated with social justice busybodies. And it's high time I've spoken out against it, at least for a moment.
It is indicative of your desire to control a powerful woman by not allowing her to be her character in her own right, but literally taking control of her every action, from where she ducks to how she defends herself, depriving her of her own agency and making her dependent on a man, making her at once a damsel in distress and a trophy to be kept and secured inside your own vast collection of chauvinist value systems.
Yes, some of those busybodies took issue with the fact that male gamers might want to, well, protect Lara from danger. Yeah, wrap your head around that one. Male gamers were sexist for wanting to not get killed in a video game. Well, the real issue, and I use the largest air quotes imaginable, was that they thought that male gamers didn't want Lara to get killed because Lara was a woman, as though wanting to protect a woman from harm was on par with wanting to not have the vote or equal pay. Well, I guess if I can't protect her because it's evil and sexist, I'll just let her die then!
It is much like a heterosexual white male that you wish to see a woman shot, cut, broken, tortured like a piece of meat. It is part of the systematic, hegemonic, patriarchal system of cissexual heteronormative oppression that has been enforced since time immemorial, so that old rich white men like Rupert Everett, who owns an entire news network to spread their lies and enslave women mentally, thus taking part in what is colloquially known as mind rape but has been known as internalized misogyny for decades.
When people be stupid, it's generally wise just to ignore them. In any event, the game is great in that it shows how Lara can fight and survive just as good as any male character, but she does not actually lose any of her femininity while doing so, and the game allows her to be an ass kicker while still being a woman. And I, Generallotz, would encourage more of that. Overall, the story is well written, well acted, with all of the voice actors actually putting in a movie-level performance. And there is a cool Shyamalan twist in the game that makes the story all the more awesome. In the end, Tomb Raider is a picture-perfect example of how a AAA game should be. It's complex, it's breathtakingly stunning, and overall, it's fun. And I cannot recommend it enough. And thankfully these days you can get it for pretty bloody cheap and with all the DLCs, because these days we've got our Game of the Year edition. And when you play it, you can laugh at all those bloody greedy video game executives. So I am General Lotz, and I am going to wish you good Tomb Raider 1 and good Tomb Raider 2, or whatever makes you happy.